Hey, how you doing? My name is Ryan, and today I'm answering the question I get most as a LEGO Marvel collector, and that's, what's my favorite Marvel minifigure? Now, that's a pretty big ask, because 2022 marks the 10-year anniversary of MCU minifigures, not counting the Sam Raimi Spider-Man figures from 2002, 3, and 4. And because I've been collecting these figures since the beginning, I thought why not take it one step further and give you my ranking for the best and worst minifigure from each year. And at the end, I'll be sure to reveal my favorite Marvel minifigure as of now. No guarantees that it might not change though. A few ground rules. 1, I'm looking at only MCU minifigures, so no comic figures, big figs, builds, or nano figures. I might do a separate video about those later on. And 2, no cannon fodder, mindless drone figures. Yeah, I could say the Chitauri, or Outrider, or Berserker minifigures are the worst, but that's too easy, it's low-hanging fruit. So with those criteria in mind, let's start off with 2012. The best minifigure of that year, I believe, is Iron Man Mark 6. This figure introduced the LEGO Iron Man helmet, which in my opinion perfectly replicates the articulating face mask of the actual character, and beautifully renders it in LEGO form. The chest print is very clean. I'm a big fan of the triangular arc reactor, and the reason I picked this one over the Mark 7 is I think the Mark 7 was used later on as a junior figure, so it kind of lessens the oomph that figure has. So in my mind, the Mark 6 is the best figure of 2012. But how about the worst? It's the Captain America figure. Not only is there no leg printing on Captain America, but it also is the start of a pretty nasty trend of trying to print flesh-colored faces on dark-colored heads. His face is really hard to make out from the blue, and there's not a lot of contrast in the print. And for a main character, it kinda should be better. For 2013, the best minifigure is the Iron Patriot. This was a polybag exclusive that was originally bundled with the Marvel superhero game, but was sold later on in GameStop and other toy stores. This figure has a beautifully detailed print and isn't afraid to take the arguably cheesy and goofy color palette of the Iron Patriot figure and translate it perfectly into LEGO. There's no skimping on the design here. It is very faithful and very accurate. I think also the extra build on the back with the shoulder cannon is very well done. And even though I might not agree with the price this polybag's going for now on eBay and Bricklink, I think back then it was well worth the $5-6 for this figure. So good, and yeah, the best of 2013. As for the worst figure, I think it's Aldrich Killian. This figure has one gimmick, and that's the glow-in-the-dark face. And it seems like LEGO put all of their energy into that one gimmick, which isn't really even that representative of the character. The torso is just a tan suit, there's no leg printing, no arm printing, no tattoos, and even the face doesn't really look much like Aldrich Killian. And you could argue, well yeah, they put a lot of their budget for the figure into the face. But take the original Harry Potter castle and Snape minifigure. Glow-in-the-dark face, really unique but accurate face print though, and a beautiful torso print. It's all there, you can make the whole package. Up next is 2014, and the best figure in my mind is Ronan the Accuser. This is probably the best version of detailed printing on a dark figure we've seen in a very long time. Even though his torso is black, there's visible detail from both a distance and up close, and his face, despite being dark blue, still has a really visible and accurate face print on it. Add a custom hood piece and a nice weapon, and you have, in my mind, the best figure of that year, even beating out the collector figure from Comic-Con. Yeah, it's that good. But for the worst, I think it's Nebula. There's really minimal detail and printing on her as a whole, and this would be fine if not compared to the quality of the rest of the figures from the Guardians of the Galaxy set. Take Drax, for example. Great face print, body print, arm print, and leg printing as well. By comparison, Nebula just looks lower effort. The worst thing I can say about this figure is that it makes the character feel like an afterthought as opposed to an actual character. 2015. I need to bend the rules a little bit in that I'm picking the Winter Soldier polybag figure. Now this figure was actually released under the Avengers Initiative brand, but neither this nor the film-inspired Helicarrier set were branded as Captain America the Winter Soldier sets, despite pulling direct visual reference from the movie. So because this figure was so clearly trying to be a movie Winter Soldier figure, I'm gonna count it, and it's really, really good. It pulls off something that I've never seen LEGO do before. It takes the two-sided face gimmick and makes it purposeful for the figure. One side of the face is the comic Winter Soldier, while the other side is the movie. It's a really clever idea, and both face prints are really well done. But the movie side just looks picture perfect. It's the only time we've gotten Bucky Barnes with the actual mask, and it's just beautiful to look at. The rest of the printing is also on point and fantastic. As for the worst of 2015, I'm gonna go with another polybag figure, and that's the Hulk minifigure from Age of Ultron. I'm not sure why this figure exists. It's so very strange to see Hulk as a minifigure form. The only explanation I can think of is that it's kind of mid-transformation, but we hadn't even had a Bruce Banner figure at this point, so it just kind of seems like they wanted to make a polybag, but they didn't want to put a big fig in it, so they went with this weird minifigure Hulk hybrid figure. It just comes off as weird. I mean, the printing is fine, but the overall idea behind it is just bad? Yeah, bad. It's the worst figure of that year. 2016 brought us a whole slew of Civil War sets, but the best figure in my opinion is Spider-Man. This was the first kind of modern Spider-Man figure we've ever gotten since the Sam Raimi one, and it's just beautiful to look at. It takes the more saturated and darker colors of the film suit and translates it beautifully into a figure. There's great contrast on the figure, the dual molded legs are fantastic, and the bolder outline around the eyes really differentiates this figure from every other Spider-Man we have gotten so far, and it looks fantastic. It truly is the first modern Spider-Man figure, and for that, it's definitely the best of that year. But how about the worst? In my mind, that's Agent 13. This figure just feels kind of slapped together. A generic spy torso, a generic female face, a generic hairpiece, and just legs. There's really nothing special or unique about this figure, and it comes off as just haphazard. Doesn't even resemble Agent 13 that much at all. So yeah, pretty bad. 2017 brings us one of my favorite figures. Not my favorite, but one of my favorite figures for sure, and that's Yondu Udanta, the best of that year. In my mind, this face print is the most accurate print of any character we've seen in LEGO form so far. It is picture perfect, from that crooked smile to missing a tooth to the eyes to the lines on his face. It's just perfect. Add to that a good chest print, a nice fin piece, and you have easily the best figure of that year. As for the worst, it's Nebula, again, with really only a couple of changes to the torso to make it more torn and tattered, and a more angry face print. Take all the complaints from the original Nebula figure and fix none of them. Yeah, that gives you a recipe for the worst figure of 2017. For 2018, the best figure in my mind is Doctor Strange from Infinity War. Great cape, great face print, really solid hair print, beautiful chest print, good likeness to the character, and an improvement from the previous Doctor Strange figure in 2016. But for the worst, that has to be Shuri. This figure bears little resemblance to the character despite having the same outfit as her from Infinity War. I think it's the face and the hair, they just don't look like Shuri at all. It's a fine print, but we have a lot of figures that also have fine prints that also resemble the character. So yeah, I think Shuri is definitely the worst figure of that year for just not looking like Shuri at all. For 2019, the best figure in my mind is the Iron Man Mark I suit. We had waited years to see this iconic gray behemoth suit translated to LEGO, and the minifigure version did not disappoint. It probably is the best version of the new helmet mold that we've seen. It makes sense to use it here because it is an older suit, so it wouldn't have the sleeker new helmet, and the printing work on it is fantastic. The actual color of the figure is kind of a gunmetal gray, so it has a little bit of shine to it, and it just looks really, really nice. It elevates it from being just a plain gray minifigure with black lines on it. But how about the worst? A lot of people did not like the Quantum Realm suits, or rather, they didn't like that they just got a bunch of them and they had different heads for each character. And while I do get that complaint, I don't think the suit itself is necessarily that bad, and therefore not the worst. No, the worst in my mind is clearly Hydro Man from Far From Home. This figure is bewildering in that it makes no sense outside of the weird Hydro Man skirt dress thing that it's attached to. The figure itself has a really bad design and poor execution. The torso and head are a different color than the legs, and not like a slight different shade of blue. No, I mean like light blue and then dark blue on the legs. it looks really weird, almost incomplete, because it kind of is. It wasn't designed as a full minifigure, but only half of a build. But it's a minifigure, so you gotta make it the whole package right then and there. Easily the worst. 2020 was kind of a strange year in that there was only 2 MCU sets released that year, both which were from Black Widow. One of the sets was going to be a Comic-Con set before it was also released through retail, but even within those 2 sets, there's a wide range of good figures and bad figures. The best from 2020 is Yelena, and not by default, the figure itself is still really, really good. A great design, complete figure printing, a good color contrast, and an accurate portrayal of a popular character. Yelena is easily the best figure of 2020, and if you've watched this channel for a little bit, you might have already guessed what I think the worst figure is in this year, and that's Taskmaster. This figure is just awful. Horrible design, weird lazy printing, incomplete. It feels incomplete, much like the character felt incomplete. It really is horrible, either version, both with the hood or without the hood. They're both bad figures, and might even be one of the worst character figures we've gotten in the MCU so far. And finally, last year, 2021, we had so many MCU figures, from the Infinity Saga wave, to the Eternals, to Shang-Chi, to Spider-Man No Way Home, to the Marvel Blind Bag set. There was so many figures to choose from. But in my mind, the best of that year has to go to one of the most visually striking and, dare I say, perfect minifigures we've ever gotten, and that's Sam Wilson's Captain America. My god, this figure is phenomenal. Every detail of the print is on there, from the arms to the legs to the chest to the face to the wings, but it's not overwhelming or muddy. There's enough restraint in the detail to make every line, crevice, shadow pop. It's just phenomenal. Add on a new wing and a new hairpiece and you have easily the best figure of 2021. And it should be. This came in a blind bag series. This is where LEGO puts all of their effort and design into those figures. And that's why the worst figure of 2021 is Monica Rambeau. This figure would be passable, if not arguably pretty bad, outside of the CMF series. No leg printing, pretty boring torso, pretty boring face, nice hairpiece. But when you put it in a CMF series, against all the other beautiful figures, it really falls short. Even on my Marvel board, where it's next to figures of all prices and all sets, it still falls short. For that year, in that blind bag series, for that retail price of $5, yeah, Monica Rambeau is easily the worst figure of that year. Now, as promised, out of all of my Marvel minifigures, which one's my favorite? Well, the answer might actually come from this year with the latest Doctor Strange figure. The print is clean, the blueprint on black legs is incredibly well done, the cape piece was literally years in the making and well worth the wait, the custom hair with white streaks look nice, and the face is picturesque. This figure is the perfect balance of going all out for design, but also restraint in how much you can put on a torso before it looks muddy. And the Doctor Strange figures as a whole are kind of an anomaly to me, but in a really good way, as every iteration of the figure is not only unique, but an improvement of the previous version. LEGO has a weird fixation with going all out with making minifigures of Stephen Strange, and I'm all for it, as it's led to my favorite Marvel minifigure, at least so far. But what do you think? What's your favorite Marvel minifigure? Do you agree with my best and worst rankings? And if you want me to make another video for Big Figs, Nano Figs, and Marvel comic figures, let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to vote for my LEGO Mythbusters set on LEGO Ideas, linked below. And as always, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.